Welcome, pop culture enthusiasts, to another episode of The Secret Origins of Mint Condition and another segment of Joe's Comics Corner. This episode finds us trekking up to the Canadian North Woods, where amidst the tranquil and ancient foliage and fauna, we spot a special corner that leads to arguably the introduction of the most important comic character of the last 50 years, none other than the Wolverine. So welcome, James. And as you folks probably know by my Brooklyn accent, I'm Joe. So, James, this particular topic was suggested by you. What led you to that?
Well, as you know, Joe and audience, we record shows out of order, so I don't know if this is going to air before or after our 50th anniversary celebration of the Wolverine.
Okay.
But something I didn't say on that podcast, and Arco, when he's listening to this, would be like, "Oh my God, I have never read Hulk 180 and 181." I don't know if I said it on that podcast, but I never read it. We've recently done that Wolverine special. It's his 50th anniversary, and I think I was like, it's probably time, given how long
So
I've
this
read.
is your first time reading those two
This is my
books?
first time I've ever read
Wow.
those books.
I
Yes.
read them when they came out on the stands back in the 70s. So, yeah.
You get to follow Wolverine's career in real time.
Yes, in real time, yeah. Wolverine's career in real time. The New York Jets, the New York Mets. Thank God for Wolverine. He's a winner.
He's a winner. Yeah, he's always been a winner. So I thought it was kind of time after my how long I've been reading comics, and now we've on our non-sponsor sponsor Hoopla, I have access to books that. Well, we've talked about this before, Joe. Like
Yeah.
when Mint first, I mean, comic book stores in general, but when Mint Condition was around, trade paperbacks were not they're not it was not as accessible as they are now,
Not at
especially
all,
like
no.
getting a Hulk. I got read this in a Hulk Epic collection, one of those
Mhm.
400-page things, and the first two issues, the book is like Enter the Wolverine is like it's Hulk stories and Enter the Wolverine. So I got to read these two books that I would have never read. Yep, that's it. That's the collection.
Yeah.
Yep. So I never got to read those books before because they weren't available. And obviously, I mean, when I started collecting comic books when I was, younger, like 10 years old, I probably could have gotten 180 and 181 for a decent price.
Yeah.
Now I would never be able to touch those books, in the current
No.
state of things. So this was the first time I got to like really figure like, oh, I have access to this book. I've never read it, and it's time. So that's why I thought it'd be good Joe's Comics Corner.
Fantastic. And 181, Hulk 181 is probably the holy grail of the entire Bronze Age. You can argue Conan #1. You can argue probably a few other things, but uh, as an artistic holy grail and as a monetary holy grail, that's it. Because if you got a 9.6, and Rich Kranjak will know much more about this than I do, but or God forbid, amazingly a 9.8, that's probably a $50,000 book.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible.
So
I mean, who knew and it's a book that I guess will just keep going in value since Wolverine's not going out of style.
yeah, books go up and down. I've been following it more lately since I've been thinking about selling the collection, and certain things go up and down, but that doesn't. Amazing Spider-Man #1, Amazing Fantasy 15 will never go down. So
Yeah.
that's one of the holy grails of collecting.
Yeah.
That Hulk 181. Yeah.
As we argued, he's probably culturally as well known as Superman, Batman, Spider-Man. You could probably put Wolverine.
I completely agree. He's right up there with those three, along with the Flash and Green Lantern and Wonder Woman and Captain America. Yes, without a doubt, without a doubt. So, you want to? Well, now we've talked about. Now we said this in the past, and we've covered Len Wein's a few times. So I don't want to skip over him. But we know how prolific Len was, both at Marvel and DC. He was a writer. He was an editor. He was the chief executive editor for a while at Marvel, right after Roy Thomas, who took over for Stan Lee. And he was responsible for the creation of Wolverine, the Phantom Stranger, his incredible run on Swamp Thing, co-creating Swamp Thing with Bernie Wrightson. But these two books, Hulk 180 and 181, feature the artwork of a man who doesn't get enough, in my opinion, praise, and that's Herb Trimpe. So I did a little research about Mr. Trimpe, and I found out he was born in Peekskill, right in New York. He's noted for the Incredible Hulk. He had two incredible runs on the Incredible Hulk and he worked for Marvel from 1967 to 1996,
Wow.
working on Hulk, Defenders, Son of Satan. Obviously, he was a co-creator with Roy Thomas, Len Wein, and John Romita Sr. on Wolverine, the character. He served in Vietnam 4 years as a weatherman, giving intel to support the troops on the ground. Didn't know that. And he was laid off by Marvel in '96 when they went bankrupt. Went back to school, got his master's, or yes, and he started teaching again. In 2002, I found this fascinating. In 2002, at the Comic Con, he received the Humanitarian of the Year award
Wow.
because in 19 let's see, probably about 10 years earlier, in 1992, he was ordained a deacon of the Episcopal Church here in New York, and he got that award for his help at the site of the World Trade Center days after 9/11. He was down there helping out.
Wow.
So a prolific artist, a humanitarian. So a little love to Mr. Herb Trimpe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can say, you know, I'm not as good like you and Richie and Arco in pulling writers and artists' name out of the thin air, which you think I'd be more focused on artists, considering I'm an artist. But yeah, I know this is not the first time I've encountered Herb Trimpe because he's done so much work, but you know, now I know him now more associated with these two iconic books.
Yes, yeah. He had to run on Iron Man for a while, and he did other things. And I went to get some. Here is a copy of the Incredible Hulk #1 annual. Right, that's Jim Starlin cover. This is considered arguably the greatest Hulk cover of all time, and I would agree with that. Wow. But inside, it's Mr. Trimpe, inked by Marie Severin. And when he first took over the Hulk as a regular feature in issue number 106, many of the early issues he was inked either by Marie or John Severin, and beautiful artwork.
Who was his inker on these two books?
Let's open it up and find out. I'm pretty sure it might have been Marie, but we'll open it. Okay, so here we go. It's a pretty good copy. I have a Fine Plus 6.5. I don't know.
Wow.
You have to get Rich Kranjak's opinion on that. Actually, Marie is the artist on this one. It wasn't until 106 that he took over the book, right?
Okay.
Just look at that splash page.
Yeah, that's beautiful stuff.
Yeah, it's Marie Severin. She's, she had a nice run on Doctor Strange and the Incredible Hulk, and she doesn't get enough love. So maybe someday we'll do a podcast on Marie.
Yeah.
She definitely deserves it.
The forgotten artistic heroes of the comic book era.
Yeah, definitely. And her brother, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But here's the first issue of his ongoing series. Actually, in the early 60s, he had a Hulk series which ran 6 issues and was canceled. Those books were penciled by Kirby and Ditko. This is Severin. Yeah, this is a Severin cover. And I believe Marie did this also. I'm not going to open up this one, though, because I don't want to get my grubby hands all over it. It's a pretty expensive book. But, yeah, that's where he started in 1968, got his own series, and he's been going ever since. He's one of the few characters that, has been continually published over the last 55 years.
Yeah, there's always a Hulk book, right?
Yeah, always a Hulk book. Cap has fallen out of favor a couple of times. When Superman was dead, he wasn't published for a while, right? But the Hulk has always been around.
Well, I guess the Hulk had a brief hiatus during the year of Heroes Reborn, right? He didn't have he did. No, he did have a Hulk book.
That's right.
Hulk continued.
That's right. He did. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because part of him got banished into that other realm, and the other Hulk that got trapped. Part of him got trapped here. And
that was one of Marvel's dumbest stunts. These 2 books. So you read them this morning, or you read them the last day or so?
I read them the last couple days. So
what do you think about them? What can you say about them? I'm interested to hear what you think about them.
It's. I was telling you because when we were preparing for this episode, I was talking to you offline about it. It's interesting seeing the Hulk in that childlike state. I don't think because I picked up Hulk with Peter David towards I guess the middle maybe of Peter David's run, right before Smart Hulk was introduced, is when I was reading Hulk. So it was mostly Mr. Fix-It, and then eventually more of the personalities came out where Mr. Fix-It was fighting with Banner and the Green Hulk in his brain, and those things were going on. So Hulk really wasn't written like this. So I was amused at the fact that when the Hulk enters the scene in 180, he breaks the farmer's fence, and the farmer is not fazed by the fact that it's a giant 7-foot green monster. He's upset with him, like, you broke my fence. And the Hulk doesn't know what to do. He's like, I'm sorry, I'll fix your fence. I'll make you a new fence. And then Hulk snaps out of it. He's like, what is Hulk saying? Hulk is not going to get you a new fence.
Yeah, Len goes to the trouble of even saying that, not everybody recognizes the Hulk. And I guess the guy living in the Northwoods in Canada wouldn't recognize the Hulk,
Yeah,
maybe. So
he's just angry at this giant green dude that's just
he
like,
wrecked his fence.
yeah.
So,
And I thought it was interesting the whole occult thing with the Wendigo story
mhm.
mythology. Is this the first appearance of Wendigo?
No, that's Hulk 162, I believe. Yeah.
Okay, because that brother or sister or that
Hmm.
that
Maria
couple.
Cartier and Georges Baptiste.
Okay, okay, so yeah, that was interesting. The whole Wendigo sort of weaving that folklore mythology into it, and
Hmm.
the fact that she wanted to curse the Hulk with the Wendigo curse and
To save her brother Paul.
to save her
Yeah.
brother Paul. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
and then the Wolverine enters like was that that's Canada's as Arco I think told us like that's the Canada's version of the Super Soldier program or Alpha Flight. They send
Yeah.
him in to kind of break things up.
Hmm. Yeah, he's Weapon X, or
He's
as we
Weapon
learned
X.
later on, Weapon 10. The X is really 10 because there was numerous tribes before that. Kind of
Which
like,
is interesting because since I've never read these books, I didn't realize the Weapon X part was part of his original mythology to start with. Like,
yeah,
I thought that's something that came down the road, but that was like that laid in mythology was there from the beginning with him.
yeah, and so with the adamantium claws. Now, I don't know if this is the first mention of adamantium in the Marvel universe. Arco would know that, but when I was reading these books back then, I thought that was the first mention of it, and I actually thought it was a real element. Looking for it, went to the library and tried to look it up in 1977. What it was, 1975? Yeah, 75. Yeah. So uh, but if I remember correctly, I don't think the claws were retractable. They didn't get retracted at all in this story, and that doesn't happen until later on. Again, Arco, I think you mentioned that on our podcast recently, but
Well, I know
we can
originally Len didn't even the idea that the claws were a part of him didn't come until much later, as
right.
Arco was saying, and the
Yeah.
fact that they were retractable and all those things. They were just I think oh my god, I'm blanking. Who was the artist who designed the costume? Because it wasn't Herb Trimpe. It
It
was
was John Romita Sr.
John Romita Sr.
Mhm.
Yes, the legend. I think we brought that up
Legend.
on his tribute
Yes.
episode. Yes. But yeah, I think that originally that was supposed to be part of his gloves, right? And then they
Yeah.
eventually became part of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the whole. I also like the fact, obviously for comics code reasons, and this is a a book for younger people. Wolverine was hacking at the Wendigo, and there's no blood.
No blood at all. Len kind of describes it though. He tells you about the sound it makes. So he's trying to give you as much as he can within the parameters that he had to work within. But yeah, it's this story. If they retold this story today, first of all, it would take him an entire year to retell this story. He did it in 2 issues,
Yes, do it. Yeah,
and then there would be blood all over the place. I mean,
yeah.
it would be a blood fest.
Well, Wolverine does mention his claws don't go through the Hulk as easily as the Wendigo. I think
Right.
he makes like some comment like
Hmm.
that. I also like the Hulk's again childlike things like Wolverine, Hulk's friend. He's the enemy of my enemy, so I
Yeah.
guess he's my friend, and I will help my friend. Like
Yeah.
he's very states everything obvious to him.
Yeah, he's got to say it out loud because they often say that he has a thought and then he forgets. He's kind of like the Man Thing, a little smarter
Oh,
than the
yeah,
Man Thing.
yeah, yes, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Call back to that other Joe's Comics Corner we did.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
I have to take now. If you remember, we had a saying at Mid Condition: "Words on the page," right?
yes,
And that's something that I like. I like because I think comic books are a compendium of words and pictures, and I don't like picking up a book where I can read it in 3.5 minutes. So now Len, as you can see, he's reading these 2 issues. Len was a wordsmith. There were captions in almost every panel, and beside the dialogue of the thought balloons, Len was not only setting the scene, the action, but telling you what the characters were feeling at the same time. So, what did you think about the writing style?
No, the writing was good. I am surprised, because when you read or the origin issues of like iconic characters at this point, sometimes they don't quite match the personality of what we've grown to know in pop culture. But it seems like Len said the voice for Wolverine, and it's pretty. I mean, I when I was reading it, I had the voice of the cartoon Wolverine in my head. Like,
okay,
that's the voice, and I was like, and nothing like bumped into me like the language that he was using for Wolverine. I didn't bump into me that's not something that Wolverine. He could still say those things today and still be okay. That's how Wolverine talks and acts and everything.
He was a little more. There was no bub yet. He didn't say bub, and I guess I don't want to say militaristic in his thinking and speaking, but maybe a little more so. As it goes on, once Claremont gets all of the character, he kind of draws deep down into him to bring out his his Canadian roots. But yeah, Len, I think they had this set up between Roy Thomas and Romita and Trimpe and Len. They knew who this character was going to be. But this is interesting. According to Herb Trimp, um, this character Wolverine was like so many other characters. They were one-offs. They had no idea this guy was going to be the breakout combo character of the latter half of the 20th century. Nobody knew that. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I guess sometimes when you're creating a legend, like it also takes like well, I mean, Arco said this too. Like, Len, I guess, dusted off the character when putting together Giant Size X-Men, right?
Yes, he did. Yeah, yeah.
He brought him. I guess if someone else was writing Giant Size X-Men, Wolverine might have gone like to the annals of B-list or C-list characters, possibly.
Very possible. Yeah. So Len launches him in Giant Size X-Men, and then Claremont comes along and just elevates him even further, and he becomes this. He becomes the focal point of the X-Men, the revival of the X-Men.
Yeah. I mean, it's Wolverine.
Wolverine and the X-Men, basically.
Pretty much Wolverine and the X-Men, which was like a cartoon or a comic book also by the same name, I think, right? Wolverine and the X-Men.
Yeah, probably was. You're right, it was. I've spoken about Len before, but I love the way Len gets into the character, and he really drills down into the characters, and the character of Maria and Georges, and we get to see Paul later on at the end of 181. But it's interesting how when things change, she brings down the Hulk twice with gas.
Yes.
So that's something that back in the day, I don't know if it still works on them today because I haven't read a Hulk comic in a long time. But the way you brought the Hulk down was you gassed him, or you asphyxiated him, one or the other, because he has to breathe.
So,
yeah. That's why if you ever got to a knockdown, drag out with Superman, I'm sure Arco's going to disagree with this, but Superman's just got to try to fly him into outer space, take him beyond the atmosphere, and the Hulk will pass out. And,
I mean, he'll more go probably inert, right? Until he because I think it established that the Hulk is basically immortal. I mean, I guess he would be inert until he reached a planetary surface that breathed oxygen again.
Yeah,
or something.
Well, Planet Hulk, right?
Planet Hulk, yeah. I mean, it seems like the Hulk is virtually immortal. He has like a lot of similar qualities to Wolverine, like the superior healing factor and the huge lung capacity and stuff like that. I mean, I know you never read the book because you don't like bugs, but in the Hulk, the end, that's like the Hulk is the last living creature on Earth. I think is how that story ends.
Did they do a Punisher story where the Punisher was the last living creature on Earth? Also, he kills all of mankind.
I think the only of the end series I'd read was the Hulk. I know Arco again wants to at some point he mentioned to you and to me he wanted to do another Joe's Comics Corner on Avengers. I think the end.
Yeah, we got to do that. Yes, we're going to do that.
So I'll be interested when I hear you guys talk about that because I've only read Hulk the end.
I read Hulk the end, Punisher the end, Fantastic Four the end, but I never read Avengers the end. So I'm looking forward to reading that.
Yeah, so it's I guess Hulk and Wolverine seem like they're a good pairing together. I mean, obviously Wolverine's introduction is with Hulk, but there's been many battles between Wolverine and the Hulk.
Well, one that comes to mind is the Ultimate Hulk and Ultimate Wolverine, where Wolverine pops his claws to the Hulk's eyes and he can't get him out. Remember that?
I don't remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big stir in the comic book store at the time. Like, what the hell is going on here? And it's like, oh, this is pretty cool. He couldn't get his claws out. Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this was like it's always good to like read this stuff. I mean, I guess I was going to go back to you and ask you a question. So is that brother, sister, that whole thing with the Wendigo, is that the end of the story or does that continue through Hulk? Like, did we see that trio again, or was that the end of the Wendigo for a long time?
That's the end of the Wendigo for a while. The very next issue, Wolverine appears on the splash page, and then the splash page has 3 panels on the side, and he's taken up away from the scene by the Canadian, I guess what you want to call them, military, right, in a helicopter, because now they're going to try to stop the Hulk. They sent in Wolverine. They gave him, I don't know how many hours to do it, and if he couldn't do it, they were going to take it into the matters of their own hands. But yeah, it's that brother and those three characters, Maria, Georges, and Paul. I don't know if we see them again. Are they even in the next issue? Let's take a look real quick. I've got it right here. Might as well look at it, right?
Yeah, you got the epic there. I didn't know Wolverine was into the next issue too. I had like one panel of him or something.
Yeah, he's in. I don't know if you can see that, but there he is. See him?
Okay.
He's on the splash, and that's it. You don't see him after that. And I don't think we see Maria and her. Well, her brother. No, they're not in here. Nope. So it's interesting because she, you know, George's, I guess that's how you pronounce it. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. It's French or Canadian French. I'm not sure. I don't want to do a misservice to the French Canadians. But he didn't want to go through with this. He
Right.
kept saying, "You're doing a terrible thing. You're doing a terrible thing," and he kind of reluctantly went along with it. But after the second time she captures the Hulk and he turns into Bruce Banner, and he sees that he's a man. He says, "You cannot do this now." Paul wouldn't want this. He wouldn't want to be redeemed this way. And then Paul, or I should say George, he decides he's going to go back into that stone cavern there, and he's going to lay on the slab, and he's going to become the Wendigo, and he makes a sacrifice for his friend and for the woman he loved, and that's a typical Len Wein story, typical story of the times. These were always morality tales, and people always did things, always sacrificed themselves for the greater good, whether they were the main character or even the ancillary characters. Very, very, common to stories of this era.
Yeah, I was going to make. I was going to bring that up. Like, oh, the Hulk became. I was wondering if does the Hulk change back at all in these comics? And I was like, oh, he did.
Yeah,
He did. But as soon as he woke up, I guess he got angry again right away or something.
Yeah. Back in the day, back in the 60s and 70s, when the Hulk got peaceful or tired or hungry, sometimes he'd sit down. He would change back into Bruce Banner, and he would stay a Bruce Banner until somebody pissed him off. This one though, he got right back up.
He did. He did change right back to the Hulk.
Yeah. So yeah, they play with that, but and another thing about the art. The artwork is inked by Jack Abel. Jack Abel had been around for years, worked at DC for a long time. Great inker, did some really great work on Superman in this period when he was over at DC, inking Kurt Swan. Always liked his inkings because he brought like a darkness to it, and it fits the mood of these characters. The Hulk, even though he's childlike, he's still a dark character, and it's I thought it just works beautifully. Everything works. The words, the writing, the art, the inking. Two great comic books.
And I just would like to talk about Hulk, I guess, mythology or storyline there, because they dip into, I guess, the ongoing story. So was it General Talbot is dating Betsy Ross at the time, and her father was it General Ross is doing something else? Like, can you expand on that? Because we don't really talk about Hulk that much. So let's dive into the Hulk verse of this time.
Well, how far have you gotten with this Epic Edition?
I just read those 2 issues.
Okay,
so.
Keep reading. Read up to at least. Let me pull it out again because I was reading this yesterday. You know how I read my, as I put it, marbles through the ages. So I'm in now April of '75, and that got me to 186. So if you in issues 184 and 185, you find something out about General Talbot. Why? Because he's been rescued. He escaped the Soviets. He was captured in the previous volume of the Epic Edition. And you can see in 180, he's like, "What do you mean I can't meet the president? Calm down. You can meet the president." And well, I'm not going to tell you what happens, but something happens in it's either 184 or 185, and you'll see the culmination of that storyline. So,
okay.
Yeah. So again, as was pertain to this era of comic books, little seeds were planted, and then they would sprout 4 or 5 issues later. Subplots.
Okay.
Something we don't have any more today in comic books, unfortunately.
No, they're just story arcs.
They're just stories. So keep reading. You're going to love the way this turns out. I think you'll be shocked too, as a matter of fact.
Well, I guess at some point, because I don't remember, I read a few Hulk Epic collections. I don't know if I read them in order. I mean, I know at some point Bruce and Betty break up, especially when he goes to like the Crystalline City, or isn't there a story where the Hulk goes to some kind of quantum verse and he's like
meets Jarella?
Yes.
Little green girl?
Yes. Yeah. And then he kind of breaks up with Betty then or something. And is that before this? Is it before that?
Yeah, I think he's met Jarella already. I'm pretty sure. And they come back to that a lot. I think Peter David explores that also. But yeah, I mean, Bruce Banner's had 2 great loves in his life: Betty Ross and Jarella.
Okay, there you go. So I read when he first met. I read because Jarella, they were able to Hulk's body with Banner's mind. That was like the first Smart Hulk incarnation.
Yeah. No, and poor Betty. I mean, you just feel sorry for her because she's so tortured by. She loves Bruce. She loves Glenn, and nothing goes right for these 2 guys. And she's got a father who's intractable.
He does eventually marry Betty, right? And the one that Peter David runs at some point.
Wow, I don't remember. I think he does. I think Again, Steven Narco. Please, in the comments. But yeah, as I was saying, I was, I'm trying to think, 75. Where was I buying these comics at the time? I hadn't started working yet at Barnes and Noble in the city, so I was probably just buying them off the rack, off the stands, And that was always a gamble because you'd go there and when the book was coming out, it may not be there, and you could miss an issue. So if you missed an issue, you out of luck, you'd have to maybe find it at a convention the following year. But by 1975, I had 3 or 4 different places in Brooklyn and Queens that I knew about, where if I didn't find something in one place, I'd go someplace else and find it. And I was, and when I started working at Barnes and Noble, I discovered what you call it, the Village Comic Shop. At the Sullivan Street, down by Washington Square, and that was my place for a few years to find it. And you found everything there.
Is that where you got these books? I mean, the Hulk.
No, these were off the rack, probably on a newsstand on Lefferts Boulevard in Queens, or maybe even someplace in my neighborhood in Brooklyn at the time. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So just to kind of talk about Hulk, well, we're going to kind of promote that epic collection that you're showing there. Peter David's listed as one of the writers. Is that like a one-off that he did in there, or that it doesn't start the Peter David run at the end of that book, does it?
I don't think so. No, they have it here. It's Wayne Trimpe and Sal Buscema, because when Herb Trimpe leaves, Sal Buscema begins a long run on the Hulk. He had 2 incredible long runs, Incredible Hulk, and also Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man. I think that run was even longer. But I don't remember Peter David writing a story.
I think I'm just looking at it now. I think in the Hoopla edition, they credit Peter David as having a story in there.
Really?
Yeah, they might have just been grouping Hulks together because they credit Peter David as like the lead author in Hoopla, which is wrong.
Yeah. For this particular edition.
For that edition, yeah.
No, they were. It's Len Wein. I'm looking at it right now. He's writing all the way up to issue 200, I believe.
Yeah, I guess Hoopla has to update their thing. They for this issue they Peter David and John Estes.
No, that's not right. They got to figure that out. They got that
okay.
wrong.
So with that being the case, how far away from that collection are we from Peter David starting his run?
Probably 10 years, maybe more.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot between this. Yeah.
Wow.
When I think of Peter David's Hulk, I think of the 80s, where this is just 1975.
Wow.
Yeah, so you got a way to go. You got the run here. Bill Mantlow's going to come on for a while as a writer. Sal Buscema is going to have a long tour as the artist. I forget who else writes in the interim. I didn't check that out, but yes.
And it's it's a year later for the Giant Size X-Men, right? Is that about it?
No, it's coming up very soon, as a matter of fact, because the Giant Size X-Men came out in 1975.
Oh, okay, wow, okay.
I think it's only a few months after this. So
okay, so Wolverine wasn't on the shelf for too long.
No, not that long. No, not at all. No. Again, if I'm wrong, guys, Arco and Steve, please correct me in the comments. But I don't think it was that long. And it's good that Len was the guy writing that book, because he said, "Hey, I'll just take Wolverine. We're doing an international X-Men. Let's use that character from Canada, the Wolverine." He put him in there.
Well, since we're going on this continued love fest of Len Wein, which he rightfully deserves.
Yes.
And we will have to do a separate episode, maybe with Arco. I'm sure he wouldn't mind, on Giant Size X-Men alone.
Yeah.
What would you say is Len's seminal work?
In all of comics, or just Marvel?
Let's just say let's say all of comics, because we've covered a lot of Len Wein now. So what's his like?
Swamp Thing.
Swamp Thing. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, because I know that's your favorite character, and I know what your favorite run is, the Alan Moore run, and many comic book historians consider the Alan Moore run on Swamp Thing to be the greatest run in comic book history, and none of that happens without Len Wein.
Of course, yeah.
Right. So yeah, I would say for me it's Swamp Thing, and then right after that, a close second is the Phantom Stranger.
Wow. Okay. Would you say? And so, with the other part of that question is, would you? My next question would be, that's the seminal work. What is his best creation? Would it also be Swamp Thing, or would it be in one of his other characters?
Well, I mean, if you're looking at it from a monetary standpoint, it's Wolverine, right?
Probably, yes, definitely compared to
There's been a number of movies, and although Swamp Thing's been in 2 movies, and he's apparently got another one coming. But
and a couple TV shows and cartoons.
A couple TV shows, right? The USA TV show, and the short-lived one a few years ago.
I mean, hands down, yes, Wolverine. I think of all the characters he's had, Len's contributed and outright created. I'm sure Wolverine is the money like maker.
Yeah,
I
but for
mean,
me, I've always been more. If I'd say the Phantom Stranger because I like that character more than Wolverine. Sorry, Akko.
did he create that character?
Well, he
Or
didn't create that character, but he elevated him. I
oh,
mean,
okay,
that character was created in the 1950s. I want to say by either Gardner Fox or John Broome, and penciled by the Carmen Infantino. And that book lasted 6 issues. And then they bring him back as a showcase one-off that sells. He gets his own book, and a bunch of people, Conway, Kenninger, Mike Sikowski, write him, and then Len gets the book, and it just takes off. And Len's on the book for about, I want to say, about 16 issues.
okay.
And Len wrote, and he had a long run here on the Hulk. Obviously, he wrote the Fantastic Four. He had a nice run on Spider-Man. He did some great Superman stories. Didn't do too much Batman. One here and there. Well, he had a run on Batman before Marv Wolfman. That's true. So it's hard to pick. I like
It is
all
hard.
this stuff.
It's hard to pick. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, if you look, I guess, at all of Len's outright creations, which I guess the top creations: Swamp Thing, Wolverine, Colossus, Nightcrawler. Am I missing somebody? Of
Um,
the ones that are really like stand out. I mean, I'm sure he's created many characters, obviously, but those are the top characters.
those are the top. I'm sure we missed a few. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to think over DC. What else? Who else created? Let's see. Hmm. Well, a lot of
Sure.
villains that he created for DC. Especially a few Superman villains, as a matter of fact. But yeah, those are the top ones.
I mean, they all have similar stories. Like, they're all kind of monsters of men, or men of monsters, a little bit.
Yeah, I think Lynn found that to his liking. I think he liked telling that story.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, Nightcrawler and Swamp Thing probably have the most sort of in common, I guess, and in terms of being this heart of like a human being with sort of a monster or demonic appearance in Nightcrawler's sort of vestige, and
yeah, the monster.
Colossus.
Yeah, the
Colossus and
monster.
Wolverine are probably more inclined with each other, with just being gruff exterior. But well, I mean, Wolverine does have a soft heart. It's hard to get to. Not like Colossus wears his heart on his sleeve,
Mhm.
but
Yeah. No, Wolverine, for all his bluster and bravado, does have a heart of a soft heart. Yeah,
you know,
he's a hero. He's
yeah,
not an anti-hero. He is a hero.
yeah.
That's the-
I mean, I think all the characters. I mean, kind of now saying it out loud, I guess all of those characters, iconic Len Wein creations that have, that anyone can point to if you're in comic books, or even people who are not in comics can recognize them at this point. They all have like a heart. Like they all have a heart and compassion for their fellow being, or eventually doing the right thing, even if sometimes they don't want to. They will do the right thing in the end.
Well, that's the whole impetus of the X-Men. The heroes that are hated by the world. The world hates them, yet they fight for the world. They fight for mankind. And the Hulk was constantly hounded and constantly put upon, and yet when push comes to shove, he does the right thing.
Yeah,
The Phantom Stranger is working in a different realm, the realm of the mystic and the supernatural, but he does the right thing, at his own peril many times. And I think that's not only the length of time. I mean, you got those stories from Jerry Conway in that era, from Marv Wolfman. Again, they were morality tales, and they weren't disguised, and they weren't like they didn't beat you over the head, but they at the same time they weren't trying to uh, layer it too much. They want to make sure you got the message here that these characters, when backed against the wall, would do the right thing for the people they love and the people and for mankind. And that's why I love these comic books.
yeah, absolutely. No, they're beautiful. So I gotta I don't know if we got to this. So I don't think we had time. But I'll ask you for both characters. So with Wolverine, what is your favorite run of the character?
Hmm.
Who's the writer and the run?
Chris Claremont, first, Chris Claremont and Dave Cockrum. I know, Arco, you don't like Dave Cockrum, but I do. And then, of course, it gets better because then you get John Byrne, who comes on with, I think, I'm going to say issue 108 of X-Men. And Terry Austin is inking him, and that's where the thing just takes off. And we've discussed that when we did
Yes,
the
John
Phoenix saga.
Burns.
Yeah,
Yeah, the Dark. Yeah.
the entire foundation of the new X-Men is laid out in those first few years. So that's my favorite run of Wolverine. I
And
do like.
I was gonna say,
other
what's your
stories.
favorite run and artist for the Hulk, or writer for the Hulk?
This run is one of my favorites, but I do enjoy the Peter David run. But I haven't reread that in so many years, so I'm not as familiar with that as I am with this run. So I would probably right now it'd be this run, the Len Wein run, Herb Trimpe run is my favorite, and then Len and Sal Buscema. So yeah,
Yeah, that's
those.
good. That's
Mhm.
good. It's yeah. I want to. I started reading the Peter David run, but didn't finish it because like Hoopla when Hoopla first came out, they didn't have all the like they keep adding, which is amazing and
That's
fantastic.
incredible.
But now I think they have the entire Peter David Hulk run, which is like I don't know how many volumes of.
Well, I think he wrote the book for 10 years, so that's a lot of volumes.
It's like I think there's like 12 volumes of Peter David at least.
Got to be.
So
That's. Think about that. I mean, today you're lucky if a writer stays on the book for 12 issues. Because
yeah.
first of all, most of them won't even last that long because the sales just aren't there
Mm.
for them. But somebody writing a book for 10 years or penciling a book for that long, it's just incredible. I mean, what dedication, and
Yeah.
hopefully they'll be getting paid for it. I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll tease it on this comics corner, but at some point in the future comics corner, I think we'll have to do something for Peter David because
Oh yeah,
incredible writer. I
hmm
know he's going through some hard
yeah
times
he
right
is.
now, and I think he still wants to write if he's able to. I mean, when we had Michael Jan Friedman on last time, he mentioned Peter
Yeah,
David's
because he's part of his group, right? The
medical
crazies.
issues, and I think if Peter David's up to it, he still wants to write. But I think we'll have to cover some Peter David writing at some point.
Oh, without a
I
doubt.
mean, because his Star Trek stuff, aside from his Hulk stuff, his Star Trek,
Uh,
books and novels and comic books are amazing too.
yeah, he did a series of Star Trek books with a whole new crew on a different starship, and I read about four or five of them, and they were very good, very well written. And
Didn't well, Peter David wrote? I've not read this book either, but I've heard nothing but good things. He wrote what Imazadi? Is that his novel?
yeah, he wrote
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
which I think is like one of the like very popular Star Trek novels written by Riker and
yeah.
Troy and all that stuff.
I don't think I've read that, but yeah, he wrote that definitely.
Yeah, yeah,
No, it's a lot of people. Hulk has had some really good creators writing him. And that's got to be a typical, excuse me, a difficult character to write because he seems to be one dimensional, right? Hulk smash, leave Hulk alone. Hulk's strongest one there is, blah blah blah. But you got to put yourself into his mindset, which might be difficult. Uh, but I think people stepped up to the plate. Obviously, Len Wein did, and then Peter David years later. But I remember, here we go, name dropping again. Can't help it. But as you know, I used to hound poor Len at conventions back in the 70s. And around this time, I'd asked him, Len, where do you get the ideas for these stories? And he said, Joe, I want to write a story that I want to read, that I enjoy reading. And I know if I enjoy reading it, you'll enjoy reading it. And I said, well, you're right. I do enjoy
yeah.
it.
That's the first rule of writing. Like,
Yeah.
is you should write for yourself, and
Yeah.
like if other people like it, great. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah. I
That's
mean, I
it.
would say like I mean, I could be doing this a little bit. Maybe it's too much praise or not enough praise. I don't know. It seems like again like Len Wein. Len Wein created Swamp Thing, and then Alan Moore. I it's a slight. I wouldn't say he's Len Wein's work on Swamp Thing was great. Alan Moore did I think elevate the mythology maybe a
Oh,
little bit
without a
more.
doubt. Yeah. He added so much to it. Yes.
That's not throwing. I'm not throwing like shade on
No,
Len Wein. I
no.
think that's what he did. I mean, I think Alan Moore elevated the mythology, and I guess Len Wein helped with establish some of the stuff of the Hulk, but Peter David sort of elevated the mythology of the Hulk because isn't that where all the different personalities came from? Is
Mhm.
Peter David?
Yeah.
So I mean,
Well, we
and
learned
now that
about we learned how he was an abused child.
yeah,
He was abused by his father. Is that the Peter David run? Is
yes, because
that
that's when he's in therapy in issue right before was it issue 400 when they merged the Hulks
okay? Right. Okay. Yeah.
when he becomes the Smart Hulk for the first time. That's like when he's in the therapy session, and we learn about his father and the monster in the closet,
Mhm.
and then Green Hulk, Gray Hulk, and Banner decide to come together, and that's when he walks out as Professor Hulk.
Yeah. Yeah. So
You
yeah.
know,
No,
so
certain writers and creators took the original characters and expanded upon it without changing things, just adding it. You can add this stuff. What I reject or what I bristle is when somebody comes along and just changes the background where it's unrecognizable. So Peter David just said, okay, we need to explain this whole inner demon inside the Hulk. What's going on here? And wow, what a great story! What a great concept to add that. And then of course. what Alan Moore does with the origin of Swamp Thing. Kind of turns it around, but it's still the same thing.
Yeah,
Basically, yeah,
it's just I think it's just mining it for future.
yeah,
It's mining it for what's there, and it obviously Peter David, what he did with the Hulk was left like now all the stories are about Hulk's different personalities
hmm
and his temperaments and all the things. I mean, there's still time. The MCU, I'm surprised, has not done anything with the history of the Hulk. I mean, it is kind of a dark history that created the character if you look
yep,
at it from what Peter. But with an actor like Mark Ruffalo, man, that's a lot of it's a
yeah.
lot of ripeness for doing like personality, a delve into someone's personality and
He's got the
transformation.
acting chops to pull that off. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
So let's hope.
so
Well, there's still isn't he still owned partially by Universal?
well, that's the reason why they said they've never done a solo Hulk movie since that one with
The
Ed
second,
Norton.
right there,
Yeah.
Norton, right? Yeah. So yeah.
Um,
Okay. Well, yeah.
and they keep kicking around World War Hulk, but I guess maybe they're still, maybe because of the Universal ownership on the solo movie, they haven't done it at all.
Yeah,
So
and you couldn't do that in one movie, by the way.
no,
No way.
no.
Now, I want to get back to something that, as I was reading these two issues, I'm thinking, and they do state that Wolverine is 5'5" in this issue, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But Arco told us he's really 5, and then later on they shrunk him down to 5'3", so he's shorter than me. But you see him go against these two giants. Arguably the two of the most powerful beings in the Marvel universe at the time, Hulk and the Wendigo. The only one you could hear maybe is the Abomination in there,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he's holding his own.
Yeah.
And he even knocks the Wendigo off a cliff. And then, of course, later on, he's slicing him up. We don't see it, and we hear the people back at the base in Canada talking about he's been heightened to the sense of extreme stamina and strength and speed. And they talk a lot about his speed in these issues. I don't know if the Wolverine as an animal in nature is a fast character, but maybe it is a fast
Maybe
character,
it is.
fast
Yeah.
animal.
Yeah.
But he's holding his own against these two
Yeah.
Goliaths, which is incredible.
Well, it's interesting. Like I'm reading it after 50 years of Wolverine history. I'm going back to his origin and reading it, so it makes sense to me. Like because that's what But I guess because Arco said like the Weapon X thing was the Canadian version of the Super Soldier program,
Yeah.
but as we know now of all the retcons and retellings, like Wolverine was born innately with all those with the stamina, the heightened senses, and so it wasn't anything that he was enhanced with. It's just what he was born with.
Yeah. And I would imagine if your skeleton is encased in adamantium, you can survive even though it's a brush. When the Hulk throws a punch, as he does in this issue 181, his speed carries him away from most of it, and he somehow survives. So okay, we can accept that.
I mean, they don't even talk about in this issue his healing factor at all. I guess that came later too.
That probably came later too. And at this time also, while the Hulk was super strong, he wasn't as powerful, innately strong as he is later on. At this time, I still thought that Thor was the strongest, character in the Marvel universe. I still think that, by the way, but I've had pushback on that. But later on, I mean, we can see how the Hulk just becomes, he's basically Superman when it comes to strength level. But he wasn't that at this time. So I guess this little guy, encased in adamantium with these long claws and this feral rage could hold his own against these two behemoths.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you, like I said, from my perspective, I mean, yeah, I mean, because like even if the Hulk like punched Wolverine in the face and whatever broke him or whatever, it grows back. It grows back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Hulk smash little men get up again. Hulk confused.
Yeah. Just keep going.
Hulk gonna stomp out of here.
Yeah.
I like it. He goes from the upstate New York, and he takes one leap, and he's in North Woods in Canada. That's pretty cool. It's a good mode of transportation if you can get it.
Jumps thousands of miles in a single bound.
One leap, he jumps 1,000 miles. It's great. These are great comic books.
These are great, yeah. Well, I'm glad we got to do this, Joe. I mean, I'm glad you took me up on it and dived into these classic issues.
A couple more. Okay, that's 180.
Yeah, they looks very nice. Nice copy.
I don't take these books out that often, and here it is.
The legendary one.
Yeah, I got to get this graded, Rich. Rich Grand Jade, we got to get this combo graded. I think it's an 8.5, but I don't know. I'm not, hopefully it comes out even better than that, but 8.5 would be a nice chunk of change.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth it to get those books graded.
Yeah, no, that book's definitely going to be graded. Those are 2 books I want to get graded.
Wow. Well, thank you for showing those, Joe.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah,
the Holy Grail.
The Holy Grail, yeah. Well, that is the Holy Grail of the Bronze Age of comics.
Yeah.
181,
wow.
yeah.
Fantastic. Seeing comic book history like on the screen.
Definitely, yeah. Well, this was fun, James.
This was great, Joe.
Glad you suggested this. More love to Len, of course, and got some love to Herb Trimpe. I don't know how many of our listeners even know who Herb Trimpe was, but now hopefully
we'll go look him up.
We'll look him up and check out his work. Very workmanlike, as I said. Never missed a deadline, and he could tell a story. And so, what else would you want, right? So,
no, that's work. It's why you're good as an artist. You got to be good, fast, and better, even better, people like you.
Yeah, well, that helps too. Yes, yeah, exactly. So as we bring this thing in for a landing, I guess we'll tell our fans and our folks that they can find us on Instagram and our Facebook page, and we greatly appreciate any and all their comments, especially you, Steve Perel. And so we thank you again for being with us for the Joe's Comics Corner. Thank you, James,
of course,
for helping me do this. Forgive me the opportunity to do these. I love them. And we have a whole bunch of them coming up. Keith and I have a few in the hopper that we're going to be doing. So once again, folks, and we're in the new year, by the way. Today is January 4th.
Yes.
So to everybody listening and watching, a happy, prosperous, and healthy new year.
Yes. Same for me.